Hey everyone, Lydia here, coming to you from my car, and I wanted to bring you a quick video about something that a lot of people struggle with. And I know a lot of people me personally, I've struggled a lot with trying to figure out what was the best thing for me, right? So that I could also be happy. So, as some of you have known, I've come from a background of childhood obesity and also competitive bodybuilding. So my eating habits have been on one end of the spectrum to the other. I've been an undereater, I've been an overeater, I've been a binge eater. I haven't got to the point where I've purged, but I've gotten close to that point, and that's when I immediately got help. So let's first talk about why eating disorders exist now, and why we struggle with cravings, and why we have a hard time saying no to things that we know we shouldn't be putting in us. So what it all comes down to, and what the root cause of all pain really is the problem of lying. You're either lying to someone else, or what actually happens, especially with eating disorders, is you end up doing a lot of lying to yourself. So for instance, you might be like walking around the grocery store, and all of a sudden you see something that you really like, and I've done this in the past before, where I've been like, oh, I'll be fine with that, I'll be moderate, I'll be good, and you buy it, next thing you know, it's gone the next day, right? That's a case where we'd be lying to ourselves. Another example would be maybe that you are going to go to a party or something, and you tell yourself, okay, well, I have total control right now, and I will have total control when I go to this party. And what happens is, when you're in the moment and you see everyone around you be acting a different way, right? Like there's no consciousness as far as what people's choices are, and they're kind of doing whatever they want. You see, this is most people. Most people aren't really conscious of eating to feel good and look a certain way, right? Like, most people are giving into willpower and what the masses are doing, right? Or short-term gratitude, so for like a short-term dopamine fix or something like that, right? The emotions, we want that comfort feel from these food choices. And those aren't the kind of people that you should be comparing yourself to, especially if you're in a state now where you feel like there's something more that you expect from yourself. And I cannot stress this one principle enough. If you feel like you're in a place where you believe there's something better out there for yourself, there's something more valuable out there for you, a better life in some way, don't keep comparing yourself to everybody around you, because everybody around you isn't doing this. I can guarantee most people around you aren't hustling to create financial freedom for themselves. They're not hustling to bring out their best in their own bodies. They're not hustling to create a life of absolute freedom and happiness, and they're fixing their internal mindset, right? Like, most people aren't doing this, so you shouldn't be comparing yourself to most people. So let's I don't want to spend too much time there, because I can go on about that forever. So let's go back to eating disorders and what really causes them. So another instance where we might be lying to ourselves is, like, I used to do this a lot. I would go to I would wait for holiday parties, and I'm a sweet tooth person. I love cookies and cakes and cupcakes as much as the next person. That will always be me. I don't care what kind of diet I'm on. Cookies and cakes will never be too sweet for me. And this was really when I got to the end of my own binge eating habits. This was probably just before I went away to college. And I would deliberately not eat a lot of actual food. Like, I wouldn't eat a whole lot of like meat and veggies and stuff like that. I would purposely leave room to binge on sweets. But for me, I wasn't telling myself it was a binge. For me, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna enjoy these things. But no, it was an absolute like full on get out of my way, it's all mine kind of, I'm gonna take some with me kind of thing, shove some in my purse. And at the time I was telling myself, well, hey, I'm just living my life, right? Like, that's another way we lie to ourselves. We say, hey, we're just living our lives. and you're not living your life in that moment when you're giving into short-term gratitude. Okay, living your life, being happy, is not only enjoying things, but also having a sense of discipline in your life, right? I mean, when you love another person, you don't just give and give and give and give, right? That's not a form of love, but there's also some discipline in there if you truly love that person, right? Same comes with food. So, and I think this is a great video, especially for Memorial Day weekend. So I think it's great. If you all have family plans, you're going to have a cookout, enjoy it. But be mindful of what you're doing. And what I mean by that is be conscious of the choices you're making, right? So the diet that I have found worked for me over the years, and a lot of people do keto, and a lot of people will do glucose diets, and they'll do like maybe a mix of the two, and or intermittent fasting, and you know, all these different things. And what I found worked for me is just really just kind of like a balance of the two things. So I carb cycle, and so for 6 out of 7 days a week right now, I am very disciplined. I hit my macro targets, even if it's low carb. I'm very precise with what I'm doing. But 1 day a week, at least right now, and this will change, it'll turn into twice a week and 3 times a week or whatever, and I'll enjoy like an influx of carbs. And you better believe I eat what I want, okay? So, but I'm also mindful, right? When I say I enjoy and eat what I want, it's not gluttonous either, right? Because when we start stepping into, when we really start, like, really, like, a lot of people will confuse enjoyment with overdoing it, right? Like eating 3 pizzas, like, and then they feel guilty after, right? So that's not really enjoyment if you're feeling guilty after. It's, believe it or not, like, even if it's a healthy thing, if you're attached to it, you're actually causing yourself pain. And an example of that would be like a relationship, right? Like if a relationship is great, and especially if it's healthy, but if you have a sense of attachment to it, then it's actually unhealthy. You can have like a relationship with food, right? But if you're attached to it, right? Like if you're attached to sweets, you're always gonna be shooting yourself in the foot every time you go after sugar. So a lot of this is fixed with being self-honest. A lot of eating disorders are fixed with being honest with yourself. And this is the biggest problem for most people, is that they can't do this. They can't face their own ego because it's too painful. It's too painful to admit that too much of this one thing is too much for us to handle, is not doing us any good, right? Too much time on the internet, too much time playing video games, too much time watching television, too much time with this one person, too much time sitting around doing nothing, too much time at the gym. Too much of anything is going to be bad, right? And eventually turns into overcompensation for another part of your life. So when we back up and we become self-honest with ourselves, we can kind of see how we actually may be damaging ourselves to some respect. So what I do is, yeah, I'll eat like a ton of carbs on this one day, on my high carb day, but I'm also conscious with the amount of sugar I take in, because that, I know, for me is like a shot of like any kind of drug, basically. Like a Snickers bar will turn me into like I'll be ravaging at any bakery or anything right after, right? Like for the rest of the day, I'll be like all over sweets, and it would be out of control because your insulin flies, you have insulin spikes that jump and then they drop fast, and that causes cravings. And I have firsthand experience with this, being I was pre-diabetic for a few months following one of my bodybuilding competitions, and I monitored my glucose, and I monitored the roller coasters my blood sugar used to take. And even if I ate a lot of food, like a giant sandwich or something, I would be hungry within like 45 minutes because my blood sugar would jump and then it would drop. And it was really hard to manage that kind of appetite. And what you're doing is, when you're eating like things that are really high in sugar and in large amounts, or enriched, not even just sugar, but things that are going to spike your insulin, so like enriched breads and things like that, you were really kind of setting yourself up for failure. Now, there are people out there, don't get me wrong, there are people who have amazing control and they can go out and eat pizza and ice cream and cake and they can get control right back, right? But for me, I have a tolerance level that I have like a threshold with sugar that I do not pass. So like just now, if you saw my photos that I put up on Facebook, I chose a sugar-free brownie and 2 cookies. So I got a black and white cookie and I got a like a double chocolate cream filled cookie. But I made sure one of those things were sugar-free to balance it out. Because I know for me, like something that's over 20 grams of sugar is going to send me on this like a high, like this, I mean, your emotions, right? You get emotionally attached to these things. And in order to prevent that, you have to stop it before it happens, right? This is where self-honesty is really important. So as much as I wanted to eat everything at that counter, trust me, I was lusting after all those cheesecakes and everything. But what goes through my head is, how do I want to feel at the end of this day? Or how do I want to feel after this meal? Because if we're not living up to our own expectations, especially if they're higher than what we're performing, our self-esteem drops. And if it drops in one area, it's going to drop in other areas of our life. If we feel like we can't trust ourselves with our eating choices, we're going to feel like we can't trust ourselves with who we pick as a partner, or what we should be doing with our time, or what path we should be going down in life, right? Like we just lose self-esteem and we lose motivation in all areas of our life because and it's like an oil spill. It spills so fast. And if you catch yourself, and this is why I always keep stressing meditate, because it gets you into the habit of catching your emotional state and catching your thoughts. And then you can prevent that oil spill, or you can catch it pretty quickly. So what it really comes down to is all eating disorders these are things we cause ourselves, and they're all just lies. They're all caused by lies. So the point I want you to take away from this is begin analyzing how you feel after you eat one thing. Like, take one day. Here's a challenge for you. For one whole day, monitor how you feel after everything that you eat. And whether it's a snack or a handful of M&Ms or a piece of broccoli, whatever, monitor how you feel after each of those things, and notice what you gravitate towards. What feeling after eating what you gravitate towards, right? Like, if you're gonna feel a lot better about yourself when you've had that healthy meal, right? Versus like a half a pizza or like a pint of ice cream. Now, I did have a pint of ice cream for breakfast this morning, which was delicious, by the way. But it wasn't like a Ben & Jerry's thing or anything. It was like the high protein Enlightened ice cream. If you guys had that before, it's really great. It's like 400 calories, but sugar is low. It's like 80 grams of carbs for 1 pint. So I had that. And then immediately I go back right to what I was doing before tomorrow. So there's structure in my life as far as my eating habits. And that was the biggest thing that I learned and that I needed in my life. And that this is what I do with my clients is give them structure in their eating habits, structure in their daily habits, just from in the morning to going to bed, as far as what they do, creating healthy habits. Whatever they're eating, whatever they're doing, making sure that they're happy doing these things, right? Because your emotions are, and I always say this, they're the most real thing about you. It's not about what you think. It's not about what you think other people think. It's about how you feel after you eat, how you feel after talking to a certain person, how you feel after doing an activity. This is how you're going to find out whether what you're doing is right or wrong. Now, I don't want to keep going on because this will go on all day, but I hope you got something away from this. And if you did, feel free to give this video, I would love for you to give this video a thumbs up, a like, and you can shoot on over to my blog. I'm gonna start blogging about my eating habits, so feel free to check it out at buildyourselfinside.com. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to private message me. If you're struggling in your own eating habits and you feel like you need some structure, I am all ears. So enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, guys, and I look forward to bringing you more. Bye, guys.